Okay, so it's happening. Welcome everyone to Metrics and Mingling 2025. My name is Casey Luaders, and I am the founding producer of Could Be Pretty Cool. Could Be Pretty Cool is an audio-first think tank for creative industries. Casey, what do those goobly glob words mean? Basically, what it means is we have conversations with creative people, artists, designers, innovators of all types, and we use those conversations as qualitative research about the creative economy. And so what we really hope to do is to have every conversation that we present on our podcast, Could Be Pretty Cool News, what you're about to see right now, basically every conversation is potentially a just wellspring of information and data because it's coming from the people in the industry who are living it. If I wrote a book, or if any of us wrote a book today about being a creative entrepreneur, in 6 months, it would probably be like halfway, mostly useless information because of how fast things are moving. And so in real time, capturing these conversations and being able to tap in with the folks who are like doing the work, it's very exciting to me. And so I do want to acknowledge in our world right now, some pretty not chill stuff happening. So thank you for being positive people in a space right now, sending all the collective vibes just to the universe right now. But hopefully this will be something that is a chill space, because that's what I like to facilitate. So what is this? What are we doing here? So this, first of all, is a live podcast recording of Could Be Pretty Cool News. So this will be available for you to watch and stream and do all the things afterwards. But I actually really need you all's help because gonna multitask and hit a button. The way that this works, unlike a lot of panels where you come to the panel and like the moderator decides like, here are the topics we're going to talk about, and then you talk about it and there's like a Q&A afterwards. The way that this works is you, the audience, are going to be responsible for voting on which topic you want us to discuss. And so the way that you'll do that, at the top of the screen, you'll see join@menti.com. If you go to menti.com and then type in the code that you see, you should see this presentation popping up. And so the slides that are just like this, you don't have to worry about it. But soon we're gonna scooch over to an interactive poll where you're actually able to vote. And so that'll be coming up a little bit later. Feel free to like ask if you need some help with that, but y'all are super smart people. So y'all, I'm sure you got it. So yes, you're gonna vote on the topics that you want us to talk about. And also, if you have any thoughts, opinions, if you're like, oh, that's interesting, I'd like to add to that. Or, oh, I have a different perspective. Can I like come say something? Again, this is going to be a podcast in podcast land forever. So yes, you can. An opportunity for you to just come up, we hand you the mic, and then you are a part of the recording. We want you as audience members to share your voices, your perspective. I don't want to say it's all data, but like it kind of is. It's all very valuable data, and we appreciate it. And so afterwards, we can just do a little more chit-chatting if you like, head home. I know it's a school night, all those things. So that's essentially what we are going to do. The ground rules for this, because we are in the wild with people we know, people we don't know, a little bit of everything. Number one, of course, as we said, we're going to keep it chill. So I don't think we have to worry about it. But yes, we're not going to call names or be mean because we're all nice people here, right? If you are going to join the conversation, which we 100% want you to do, if you want to just keep it a little bit concise, just so that we can make sure we get through all the things we need to get through, that would also be chill. And then lastly, of course, the topic that we're going to be talking about today as creatives and folks in creative industries is largely going to be centered around AI, which in our particular industry can be, I don't know, it can be a contentious subject. It could be just a lot of different things. So stay curious. You might hear some things you agree with, don't agree with, but like we're all just here to like learn or whatever. So with that, my biggest flex as a human and a person is that I know so many insanely interesting people who are willing to let me stick microphones in front of them sometimes. So I would love for this amazing group of people who've let me do that tonight to introduce themselves and let the folks know a little bit more about what it is that you do. And then we'll jump in and get started if that's cool. So I guess you're sitting next to me right now, so we can go that way.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. We're in the South, right? We talk back a little bit. I'm Dr. Anulia Kanabu. I'm a cultural anthropologist by training, and I'm currently the labor, race, and technology researcher at a research institute called Data and Society.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Alejo. I'm originally from Costa Rica, but I've been living here in the U.S. for 11 years now. I'm American in all that sense. I like burgers, and what I do is I draw for a living. Essentially, I go to conferences, events, and meetings, and I draw the ideas that people are sharing so that they can engage more with it and they can remember them better and pass them around. So, yeah.
Hello, I'm Emily Sankofa. I'm a film and TV composer, which means I compose original music for film and TV shows. I was born and raised here in Atlanta. Might be a bit of a unicorn at this point, the way Atlanta's developing, but yep, that's pretty much what I do.
Amazing. So, yes, these are folks who, like, I just selfishly kind of wanted to gather into a room and ask them questions, but I was like, wait, we could also do content. So I'm amped. I'm ready to dive in if you all are. So again, if you've gone to minty.com, some folks just joined us afterwards. So yes, you'll go to minty.com and type in somebody already making moves. All right. Type in the code at the top. And the three options for this first segment of our AI in creative entrepreneurship discussion is on admin and workflow. So I'm gonna just read it out loud for the tape that's recording. I can edit this, it's not live streamed. So question number one, or option number one, what administrative work still needs a human involved? Option number two, does AI make clients expect work faster and cheaper? And option number three, which tedious tasks are you happy to hand over to AI? So it looks like we're about, we'll give it like two more sec. Okay, give it all right. All right. So, okay, in my brain, I'm gonna be like, this is democracy. So we'll go ahead, and then I got a little sad, but it is, and we're beautiful, amazing people. We're gonna keep it that way. I'm gonna edit all this out. Okay, so it looks like the topic that the people want to hear about, they have just voted upon it, is which tedious tasks are you happy to hand over to AI? And so I'm going to start with Emily, if I may. I would love for you to tell us, for you, what is the most annoying admin task that AI has actually been helpful with?
For me, I think the most tedious task that I'm essentially happy to turn over to AI is like formatting tables, formatting pitch decks. Most people may not realize, but as a composer and an artist, I'm also still an entrepreneur. So, in terms of getting funding for things that I want to do or fund outside of doing my projects, I typically build out decks and things like that that can be really time consuming, especially with the amount of the workload that I have for some of my larger projects. So that's one of the biggest things that I use AI for at this moment. Sometimes I use it for brainstorming tasks. Sometimes I may use it to actually respond to emails. But it's mainly, if I'm using it for that, it's mainly formatting pitch decks and kind of like making emails a little bit more concise when people just have small amount of time to read through things. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thank you. Alejo, same question.
Well, I gotta confess that in this area, probably I'm the least expert or the least person who has less utilized the full capabilities of what AI can do within my work. I've tried it for sure, And the part of the areas in which I've tried it is like sometimes I don't attend real conferences and meetings, but they send me a recording. So it's like, okay, I could put it in AI and it can show me a transcript of the main ideas. But the problem with that, because I've tried it, is that the ideas that it gives me lack context. And sometimes the context is what brings the ideas that I'm going to draw. And part of like feeling the vibe of the environment is and just the nuance of the tone of voice and the feeling, like how the audience reacts. So transcripts are very useful if I just have like a bunch of data that I don't really care that much, but in the area of my work, the context is very, very important. So I haven't experienced success with it just yet. I end up spending the same amount of time that if I didn't use AI. What the only thing that I've found useful is just research in general. It's way faster, but it all depends on how clear I am on asking my questions. So I will sometimes research, like if I'm going to travel somewhere, like just a broader sense of what I'm looking for to be there, and it will give me some things, and then I feel much better going through that information and just kind of exploring and deciding myself instead of relying on like, oh, because AI said it, it must be the best option. So I feel like I could ask a person for recommendations too, like if I'm going to travel somewhere or if I'm going to, you know, just explore a new software or something like that. So yeah, I'm probably the least qualified to answer that question in that regard.
No, I'll wait till Emily finishes.
I was gonna say, like, least qualified, most qualified. Like, we all are dabbling and figuring it out. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, good.
I was just gonna say one thing real quick.
Go.
I also sometimes, because I have to sign a lot of contracts to work on things regarding like intellectual property, there are times, even though I have a lawyer, I will take the contracts that I get and run them through AI to kind of get a digest of the sections and the things that are outlined, because contracts can be, crowded with legal language. And I've read enough to pretty much understand, but to make things concise and to speed up my process in terms of interpreting what I'm agreeing to, I use AI as well to like analyze my contracts, which a lot of times is funny. I sometimes catch things before my lawyer, or I suggest things to my lawyer to laser in on before I send that over. So that's also another useful tool if you're a creative and you're reading contracts for your work. That's something to look at.
Thank you, Dr. Manuli. I'm not gonna. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't want to say anything dumb to Dr. Manuli because she's like a data doctor person. But I would love if you, because you're doing very like specific research right now on AI and workforce. And is it a secret? Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing just before?
I can talk about
Okay.
it. It's fine. So I am currently doing field work. Well, I'll start by explaining what a cultural anthropologist is, because I notice when I say I'm a cultural anthropologist, the only connection people have is like Indiana Jones, and I am not him. I don't do that. So cultural anthropology for me, specifically as it relates to this intersection of labor, race, and technology that I'm in, means that like my own personal work is focused on people, not platforms. So I don't necessarily study how tech companies impact people or like the business of technology. I study how technology impacts our society through everyday conversations and interactions with people. So my work is in the world. So for example, it's Atlanta Tech Week. I'm doing field work all week at Atlanta Tech Week. My current project is looking at how people learn about AI. What does it mean to be AI competent in today's labor market? So what are the training programs available to people? What is its impact on workforce development and career development? So I've been having really meaningful conversations with different people, whether they work in the industry, whether they're somebody that's trying to get into technology, whether they might be an educator who's now being asked to adopt the technology, whatever your industry is, and people are telling you, AI is here, you have to like get with it or get lost. I want to learn that story. So how do I use AI in my own work? Well, I'm not using it to do my research. Like I still do traditional anthropology in which I am in the world of people, because I can't just get by emailing people and asking them to be in my study. Most of my research participants comes from meeting people at an event, meeting people at a community workshop, and then following up with them with technology. So the main way I would even use AI, because it's not going to write for me. I'm not going to let it think for me. I didn't get this degree for it to do that for me. Transcription, because I do a lot of interviews, and back in the day, I used to hand type, transcribe everything myself. That takes hours to transcribe even a minute of conversation. I will use a tool to put it in there so I can read the script. So it saves me more time to actually meaningfully think. It's the main rote task that I would use AI for, is the transcription, so I can actually read the transcript and get the data I need to move on, because that does take a long time.
No, thank you all for that. I'll say, for me in podcast land, the bane of my existence is episode descriptions and show notes. I used to oh, the episode's finished, I can put it out. Oh, I gotta do the show notes now. And so one of the primary admin tasks, as we're talking about transcriptions for me, I took all of the actual things that I wrote circa 2020, 2021. And then I did train an AI model on this is what it sounds like when I actually write show notes. Here's the transcript of this episode. You should write show notes for it like how I would. And I feel okay about that. So that's an admin task that I'm very happy to hand over to AI. Does anyone want to share any of their oh, this is a thing that I use the robots for, or anyone hear anything that they're oh, you could also do this, or I've tried this, and if not, that's also cool. Oh, please.
Yeah, just real quick. I was just talking with her recently because I'm also planning on starting a podcast, and I trying to come up with things to ask people for the podcast. I want to come up with the questions, but sometimes there's a lot of background that I will have to listen to a lot of podcasts to kind of get the stories, and I will have to read a lot of books to kind of get just data that could inform me of what to ask this person. So I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna be interviewing this person. Just tell me a little bit about them, and then if I'm curious, I will do more research, and then I will come up with the questions. But that saves me a lot of time rather than just consuming all that content from the first place.
Okay, so Sam, I didn't think about this part. Amber, you had a hand raised. How can we make it so that people can hear you saying things? The answer to that is, do you want to come up here? Okay, thank you, Amber. And feel free to introduce yourself, tell the people what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, come close, because if you speak in the speaker, it's gonna do a feedback.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Amber G. Johnson. I'm the founder of Gale's Futuristic Fire, where I serve the Georgia community at large as a firearms instructor and dealer. I use AI to make a schedule, and you can download a CSV file, and you can download it straight to your Apple Calendar, and it'll make recurring dates for you based off what you decide what you want to do. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Amazing. Thank you, Amber. Very cool. Okay, so one more question on this admin topic, because then everybody's admin, but to me, is of all the things the robots can do, probably my favorite. So that actually is my question to you for everyone. Does using AI tools for admin stuff save you time? And if so, how many hours do you think a week are you saving?
I mean, I didn't quantify it, but if I'm doing even 5 research interviews and they're each an hour, and if you have an hour of things to transcribe, it really would take me maybe 2 to 3 hours per that 1 hour. So maybe 3 times 5, 15 hours might be saved, but it's a very tedious task when you just really want to read the thing. So I think it's good for that. I don't really think of it in the terms of the hours, but to answer that question.
I've been reading a little bit about the idea of instead of saving, buying. Um, I come from a background in which there, w- there was not a lot of money in my household, so saving on stuff was like the priority, right? Like my mom taught me when I was very little how to go to the supermarket and find the cheapest prices for things that we were looking for, and it was all a game. So like this mentality of like saving, I started saving when I was 7, 8 years old, was very ingrained in me. And as I grew up, I realized that saving can only take you so far because you're essentially working with what you have. But when you buy, you can access things that you don't have that free you up for other stuff. So instead of like saving time, how can you buy time? It's a thing that I'm still working on. And yes, AI could save me some time, but if I still have to do certain parts of the research or certain tasks, even if there's stuff that I don't want to handle, like maybe I don't want to handle to somebody else because I don't have the resources, but maybe if I just let somebody else do it, it would be much better than me actually asking AI. So I just want to put that out there because sometimes the temptation is like, oh, now I can do so much stuff with AI. It means that I have to do that stuff, but that's not really freedom. Like, you don't want to do all that stuff, just delegate it. Just right, because you might need the resources to pay somebody to do it. But that's something that I'm working on, like breaking that mentality of just like I want to do it all myself and save as much time and money that I can, to another degree of like maybe I just don't need to do it. I just need to get somebody else to help me with it and trust, that they can do a good job.
Can I just add to that? Because I think a lot about this. I'm finding in my work here in Atlanta a lot of optimism for AI. And I'm not here to affirm or negate that. I'm trying to be as objective as I can right now in this stage of my work. But what I will say is one thing I always ask people is when we talk about AI can help us be more efficient and productive, what are we saving that time to do? Like, what is the purpose of cutting all these corners and trying to be super fast with things? I know for the example I gave, there's like a clean reason, right? Like transcription gets me so I can focus on the deeper level thinking. If that is what the AI is doing for you, that you can focus on deeper level work, then that might be the benefit. But if it's just to save time and cut costs for the sake of doing that without any like deeper reason, then I would reflect on that. And why is it we live in a society that really emphasizes everything happening fast and cutting out some of that, trial and error learning process, which we might end up talking about that more. But I do want to kind of at least situate myself as somebody who is not wholly in the AI will save us realm, because that is not what I'm studying. I'm just really curious about how people think about it and are learning to use it. But I don't personally think that AI will save us. And I'll just stop there.
Oh no, this is Team Nuance here. Please, yes, we love it.
Yeah, so I love this conversation here because I think about this as well. So I don't know if you guys know the show Mad Men, which is basically like a 60s series on like the advertising business. And what I found most interesting about that show was seeing the high level executives essentially in their office kind of looking like they were chilling, but they weren't. They were actually freeing up creative space to like make high level decisions because the decisions that they made essentially impacted their employees, they impacted the relationships that they had with their clients, like all of that stuff. And so when we think about AI, we have to have some type of clarity around, like you said, why we're using it, and have a pointed kind of approach to how we're leveraging it to simplify things for our lives. Because I agree, I don't think it should be like, hey, I just want to cut corners, get this done as fast as possible. Because what I found in certain conversations is exactly that. A lot of people don't have the answer to, well, what are you doing after you free up the space? You know what I'm saying? And so for me, AI, in terms of creative work, is not necessarily a space where I want to free up creative space just to be doing it. It's really like to make even more interesting decisions in my work. And even with the admin piece, it's like, when you're building a business, sometimes for people, the idea is to scale, right? And so when you don't have the resources, there are certain things that you have to leverage that are at your fingertips where it's convenient and it makes sense cost-wise first. But as you scale, it should make sense to employ people, to bring people into the mix, because what I also find valuable when I'm working with people is having other folks in the mix to bounce ideas off of that have experiences that the computer doesn't. You know what I mean? It's very like, it's like a fingerprint. You know what I'm saying? So it's valuable to have people in the mix when you're building your organization, but also leverage tools that are available if you need them. And even when you're scaling and you're incorporating people, it could still save time, speed things up. But I think it's important for everybody to just think about these things and have clarity around why they're leveraging these tools, and the use cases for them, just in whatever industry you're working in.
Nice, nice. If any, it looks like we have a in the space mic. If at any point anyone's like, "Oh, I gotta jump on there," thank you for that, Sam. That was improv. Appreciate it. So, the next area that we're gonna wade into, a story that I like to tell. I remember circa 2022. There was like this app where you put in like some of your pictures, and then it took all day, and then it sent you like 50 AI generated like art images, and I was seeing everybody like posting it, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm gonna do it. I think you paid like $1.99. It was like really random. But I remember getting my pictures and being like, "Oh, this is dope. I'm gonna put it on the gram," as one does. And I had more than one of my artist friends slide in my DMs and be like, "Girl, do you know what that is? It is just stealing from artists. And if you are using those tools, then you're just ripping off artists and you're hurting the artists." And of course, me, I'm like, "No, that's the last thing I ever want to do. I'm never going to do AI. Boo." And then a few months later, a little tool called ChatGPT came on the market, and it was like, oh snap! So we're going to be moving into beautiful segue, even though that was unintended. Talking about the use of AI in the creative process. And so this, is a thing. Speaking of Atlanta Tech Week, just another sidebar. You go into like the tech bro and broette rooms, all they're talking about is like AI. Yeah, I use this tool, I use this tool. And again, in my artist and creator spaces, sometimes it can get a little bit like you're not real if you're using these tools. So, the potential options for this portion of our discussion. Number one, do we lose creative breakthroughs when AI prevents mistakes? Number two, does AI help beginners learn or make them lazy? Or number three, what's the difference between AI helping you do a creative task or AI doing the creative task for you? Oh, okay. Okay. That seems to, all right. Seems to be the thing that you guys want to talk about. That's cool. Okay. Wait, I would double check because democracy. Just make sure. Oh, okay. Got some more over there. Okay, I think yeah, that's the total of the people in the room. Okay, so what's the difference between AI helping in your creative process and AI just doing it for you? So, am I gonna confuse myself? Probably. Let's start with Alejo.
All right.
Yes, Alejo.
So what's the difference between AI doing it for you and you doing it and AI helping you?
Yeah.
Timing, I guess, the stage of the process where you involve AI can tell a lot of who kind of came up with the idea. I am on the campsite of ideas are like a reflection of us and are not only things that float in there but are like part of our experience. So when we delegate that, we are canceling ourselves in a way. Just having somebody have the idea and us rolling with it, being the executioners, or maybe sometimes not even the executioners, just the signers of them. I feel like in my process at least, the process of coming up with ideas is not just for the ideas themselves, but it's the struggle of coming up with the idea, what makes it valuable. And when we limit that struggle or erase it completely, then we my fear is that we become people who forget how to think creatively and uh, think in a way that can helps us solve problems. And behind that is just the idea of trying to communicate things that are in our head. It's so important that we figure out our own voice as creatives. Like that's the struggle that every if you go to any art school, that's the first question that everybody's gonna ask. How do I find my style? How do I find my voice? How do I find my uniqueness? And when you delegate that uniqueness, it yeah sure it can look amazing. It can be very incredible to see, but you're not discovering yourself, you're showcasing something else. So I think the risk there is just that you you want to use, or at least in my case, I feel like it would be wiser to involve AI in the later stages of your creative process to help you refine, to maybe give you feedback, to uh, give you some light on blind spots that you may have. Um, and ask suggestions as you would with somebody else, and not in the initial stages. Uh, not to erase the tension that you have when you encounter a problem that you need to solve, not to make it easier for you, because easy is not better. In the creative process, the struggle is what makes it better. So, yeah, it will be more in the later stages than in the initial, to kind of summarize that.
Can I just say, I feel like you say that in like the least judgmental way ever. Like, I feel like you say when you're talking about where you should use the process or like your opinion, like you say it in a way that's like, oh, I feel okay about this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I don't, I'm not nobody to, I'm not the person to tell anybody what to do with their lives. I feel like everybody should have ownership of their own decisions and should accept the consequences of them. I like to advise, and advice is a sort of retrospective of, oh, if I were in that scenario, do I feel like it would work out or not? And it's just based on my context. So, from my perspective, again, I I don't think it's prudent to delegate your thinking and to delegate your creativity to AI, because those are the things that intrinsically makes you you. From my perspective, again, if somebody wants to try it out, like that's up to them, right? But I'm not here to say like, hey, you're a bad person for that. It's like, if you're curious, pursue it and see what happened. Then maybe we can have a conversation about it and see if it actually works, and maybe I'm wrong. But from my perspective, I've just noticed that in all the scenarios where I've seen artists, the value of the art, it sometimes doesn't even have to do with the craftsmanship of it. It just has to do with the struggle of doing it, and we can follow that in the hero's journey. Like when we see a movie that touches us, when we hear a song that moves us, there's something about the struggle that connects us to it, and we know that the hero had to go through a series of hardships and transformations in order to achieve whatever they needed to achieve, and we root for that. And when we lose the struggle, we lose the meaning. Imagine if life was easy. Like, we strive for life to be easy, and everything that is around us is designed for convenience. But like, we haven't had such an epidemic of loneliness and depression and anxiety ever in the history of the earth, right? And we're talking like there was people who were living harder circumstances than us, and they were probably more fulfilled than us, because now everything is so easy that, like, so what's the point? Like, we find purpose in the struggle, and if we don't embrace the struggle, we lose something really deeply human. So I'm all for hardship. It sounds very weird, but I think it's important that we struggle with ideas, that we struggle with obstacles, so that we can discover and feel like, oh, that was inside of me, and feel awe, like true awe.
I love that. And I also kind of want to challenge this just a hair, not in a bad way, but I've seen some of my peers who are like in music and this is about like, where does the idea actually start? Does it start at the prompt? Does it start after you've generated something with a prompt and you morph it completely different away from like what it, what the AI spit out for you? And so I've seen people who are at the top of their field experiment with AI in this way, where they start the process of like letting AI do something and then they take it far away, and that process ends up being the creative process, even though it kind of comes after the idea that came in your head. But it's like, is the prompt the initial idea? Basically, you know what I mean? Like, where does the idea start, or where does the actual creative process start? So I really think it's kind of the idea of it really depends on the user. You know what I mean? It's a case by case basis, I think. I particularly haven't seen any tools musically that are worth starting an idea or generating music, any type of original music, because some of the stuff that I've played with is just very basic. It's so, like, I think in terms of the music space, AI has such a long way to go, because it's just not as nuanced. And even when I do incorporate people into my creative process, I've actually found that it's been challenging to. Well, so I'll back up actually, because if you don't know anything about the process for film and TV composers, do you guys know like Hans Zimmer? Everybody know Hans Zimmer. So the way his operation essentially works is sometimes he'll come up with like sketches and ideas, and he has a team of people that sometimes embellish and grow those ideas out. And a lot of film composers do work in this way. Some people have more lean operations, but others are, at the level of Hans. And so when you have that type of operation, there has to be some type of system that's in place for people to essentially be able to like regurgitate your ideas to where it's undetectable that it's not like the original, that like Hans's idea. And so when I've been in, like, I've tested that concept and I realized that like my process is so unique that I can't do that even with regular people. So there's a level to what I do as an artist that I keep, because I don't want, I've tested it. I can't unleash that to people, so it's not something that I want to even turn over to AI, because we don't even know how sophisticated that this is getting yet. And so keeping those things close is useful, as it's mentioned. But I just wanted to propose that, because that is like, where does the idea start? Where does that start?
I think one of the things that makes me particularly primed for this conversation is my dissertation research. So for that project, I focused on the work and lives of Black creative contract workers here in Atlanta. So that includes everyone from social media influencers, actors, musicians, photographers, anyone who does gig work in creative industries. And one of the main takeaways from that project was tracing back a history of contract work and just work in general, to W.E.B. Du Bois's idea of double consciousness. Because that's actually a labor argument, which a lot of people don't realize the history of it. It sounds weird outside. Okay, things are moving. Okay. So one of the things that W.E.B. Du Bois spoke about with this concept of double consciousness is that as a Black worker, you are divided. You have twin tensions that are trying to pull at you. One of those tensions is serving the market, and the other tension is serving your spirit. And that is what a lot of artists face, the tension between producing work that serves the market and producing work that serves their spirit. So I've had research participants talked about, oh, well, I might take this gig because I got to put gas in the car, I got rent. It might not be the gig that helps me perfect my craft, but it pays some bills. Or I might take this other gig because it helps me perfect my craft. It might not pay as much, but I feel like some type of like spiritual fulfillment from doing this work. So I think about this question that way. Like, what is the difference between AI helping or an AI doing? I would ask, in addition to that, is the work that you are in the process of producing intended to serve the machine or to serve your spirit? So AI might help you because I might use a prompt, and the prompt might help me generate an idea, and I take that idea and I move forward. AI might be doing the work if it's, I just need to get this task done because I just need to produce it fast so I can move on. If it's like that, that's more like you're trying to use AI to just get through the thing versus I really want to go through what Alejo was talking about. It was like that creative process. I think personally, we might lose some of that because part of being a creative is that trial and error, is that experimentation, is that play. And we're living in a world where we're asked to do things faster and cheaper and just get to the point, and we are focusing a lot more on the creative product than the process. But it's that process that gives an artist that fulfillment, like they learned and they did something new.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would also add, because I love the distinction, double consciousness. Um, I would add to it, and also to the part of production that you mean. I don't know how many who will be listening to this, or like you guys have read the Secret Garden book. A very interesting book. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and the premise is like there's this kid who lives in a big house, and his dad is grieving the loss of his wife, and on his grief, he neglects his kid and essentially makes him think that he's ill. So this kid is confined. He doesn't see the light of day, and he thinks he cannot walk. He's like in a wheelchair and all that. Has somebody who like tends for him. And this girl comes in by different circumstances and ends up being nosy, exploring things, and take this kid to this garden that she found. And while at this garden, something happens within his spirit, and he realized that, oh, there's so much beauty out there, some stuff that I was missing. And he found out that he actually could walk. He was perfectly fine. It was just that he had been confined in this thing and made believe that he was sick. What I'm going with this is that when we divide our consciousness between is this fitting the machine or is this fitting the spirit, I know I'm like 99% certain that most people would be like, well, work is, it ideally will bring fulfillment, but I seek work so that I can provide for my needs. So if this helps me do my work faster and easier, I'll start relying on that more so that I can provide for my needs, so that maybe I can have time to tend for my spirit. But the reality of the human nature is that we say that to justify our use, but we never actually implement that, and we end up just doing more of the for the machine part, and again delegating our spirit to it. I'm not saying that all creative work must be like wow, groundbreaking, but if we are not finding fulfillment in it, we're missing something. We are being the kid in the dark room who somebody told him, hey, you don't have ideas of your own, you cannot walk, and we believe it, and we miss out. And that's the fear that I have of like, it does require a high level of awareness of what am I using this for, or am I overusing it to the detriment of my own capacity, to the detriment of my own skill, my own ability to perceive reality. With production could happen, but it's just a mindful exercise that, because we're in such a hype, some people might miss it.
I might add plot twist to the dissertation project. It's the work-life balance is a scam created by capitalism. You're not going to ever achieve true balance between your personal and your professional, because we saw in 2020 how we started working from home and everything was kind of blurred, and marginalized workers have had to live in that reality even before 2020, when you might have stuff going on at home that's impacting your ability to show up at work and vice versa. So one thing I would say, just to add to this, and when you think about is AI helping or doing or anything of this conversation, is I really lean towards, and what I promote through my work in general, is this idea of wholeness. And that comes from Toni Kapambara. She was not a labor scholar, but she might have well been, because she has this thing is like, you can't really separate all these aspects of your life. You live one whole life, you have an ecosystem, and work is a part of that. And that is what the artists that I studied were trying to create for themselves. How do they really become intentional about how they use their time and their talents to create a life that their ecosystem, everything feels kind of connected and aligned. So that is the goal. It's a privilege for many of us to have a life where your work and your personal, you can find a way to like manage and navigate that. But to try to find perfect balance is a achievement that no one's ever going to get that perfection, right? There might be a season where you really have to pay attention more to what's going on at home because there's family matters. There might be a season where you have to pay attention to, you know, really cranking up at work, but it's never going to be perfectly balanced. I think AI can help, but it also can complicate this. And there's a lot of other conversations that can be had that I don't often hear in Atlanta about like some of the ethical considerations and the environmental impacts. I won't get too into that right now, but there's a lot of nuance with the AI. And I try to like stand on that because I don't want to come across as like, yes, these tools are awesome. There's a lot of things that we have to consider.
Can I say one more thing? So this is actually all making me think about the power of language, because I think about the way that AI is revolutionizing the way we speak, the way we think about how we form sentences, because like I saw AI really like maybe almost 11 years ago, when like Wix is a site builder, right? And they started implementing AI like very early. And I was building my sites on my own. And when I saw that, I was like, this is interesting. Like you can build a whole entire site. And so when it first came out, I tried it, but it just wasn't sophisticated because I was very limited in my programming language. There were things in my mind that I wanted, but I couldn't do it. So when I tried it, I'm like, this is not working out. And so I ended up taking a class actually at SCAD for web developing, and I learned more things. But what I'm getting at is that what I've learned about AI is that like engineers use or engineers pretty much program and build things with a coding language, zeros and ones, other types of sophisticated protocols, that you can build really whatever. But AI, I'm seeing, is essentially like a coding language for the common man and woman. And the sophistication of what you put in changes the result. And so I work in film and TV, there's animation, and one of the things that I saw, because I watch how a lot of my animation friends leverage AI, and there's a certain level of knowledge that you have to have about the craft before you can even get certain results from AI. And I think that AI at this point is not going anywhere. So I think what is also going to create the distinction is still having a certain level of knowledge of the craft to even get the level of results that you would get from just doing the main work. You know what I'm saying? Because I have seen where it's beneficial for certain people or certain industries to leverage AI to speed up, because animation takes a long time to do. It takes massive teams, and there are separate teams and departments for like just building character textures, and it's crazy. And so what I think about is even that is like there are going to be layers to how this is used, the results we get based on who's using it, and also I think there's going to be like a hybrid creative where there are people who study, I don't even want to say the old techniques of the craft, but essentially like the human elements of the craft to then leverage the technology to potentially speed up the work or to add more interesting results or an interesting edge to the process. But yeah, I just wanted to add that piece.
No, this is very cool. And I think all of this leads us into our final topic of discussion, which is how all of this is affecting the industry, the creative industries at large, and society. You've each sort of touched on these elements in different ways. And I want creative people to make money. I'm advocating for, just because we went to art school or went to study artists doesn't mean we should be poor. That isn't what we should be about anymore. But I also, to your point, Dr. Anuli, I don't want to destroy the environment to be able to speed up a task that's going to help me to not be poor. I don't want to lose my ability to dream and believe that I can walk just because I'm like, I can get 5 things done right now if I just put them all into this model and hit enter. And yeah, I don't, what is this balance that doesn't exist apparently? Like, how do we? And then look at y'all audience. Y'all are so funny. It's the okay. Look at the hilarious. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. Beautiful. This is give it one more second. But yes, like the kind of like bring us on home moment is like, I mean, the purpose of this wasn't to like solve anything, but it was. I find in creative industries, talking about AI sometimes feels like talking about plastic surgery. Like people didn't used to talk about like, yeah, I got my nose done, I got fillers. Now people do, but it's almost like I don't want to tell anybody that I used AI to make this presentation. They're not gonna think I'm cool and creative or a real artist, But like I was doing it in the midst of like 10 other things, which now I'm thinking about, is that good? Is that bad? Y'all are giving me a lot to think about. Thank you. That's why I want to do this. Anywho, the final topic of discussion, industry and society, for the tape, the options were, how do we keep human creativity valuable when AI is cheap? Will AI eliminate jobs that help people start creative careers? And how is AI reshaping the landscape of paid creative work? And so it looks like the folks want to hear about how do we keep human creativity valuable when AI is so cheap? How are we going to encourage people to pay for a photographer when people can just type in, show me a picture of a frog? How are we going to encourage people to pay for a poet to come speak at the event when you could just do text to speech and something's coming over the line? Like, how are we going to keep doing that? And I would actually love to start with you, Doctor, because I feel like you have thinky thoughts about that.
How do we keep human creativity valuable when AI is cheap? Well, I have one of those jobs that they're saying that AI will replace, right? Research. Everyone thinks they're like, oh, just put a prompt to tell me how to research and that's it. But it's not going to do that because what AI can't replace is my perspective. What AI can't replace is my training and my experience, right? All of that is actually what AI eats, right? Like anytime you're typing into AI or uploading your work, you're feeding that machine with your experience, your perspective. Right? It's nothing without those inputs. So I feel like I have job security because right now, what people are talking about is what will happen to critical thinking if we are relying on the technology. So there are now companies that are looking more for social science graduates, people that can kind of bring that perspective to the fore. I think how we keep our human creativity is to engage in learning and play in our everyday life. I think we forget that. One of the questions I never ask people when I meet them is, what do you do? Because it feels like talking about work. For me, I always ask them, what is your hobby? What are you into? And you kind of find out from that conversation that a lot of people don't prioritize that. They don't prioritize play. We live in a society where people are afraid to mess up or people are afraid to be shown trying, right? It's so cringe to look like you're trying hard, right? You're doing too much. I say do more, read more, learn more, and I think that companies will always hire that. Any job that I've ever had, I can recall they will tell me after, once I get the job, oh, we liked you because of this project that you do outside of work. Like the current job I have, they like that I have a podcast that I started when I was doing my PhD, and that was a part of that process. Do I do podcasting in this job? No, I don't. But they liked that I had this very specific like niche interest outside of my job. It showed a perspective. It showed me as a thought leader. Even the first job I got from undergrad, I had a website. They liked that. They never talked about my grades, and I got straight A's. No flex. But they never talked about grades. They never talked about experience. They talked about this thing that I learned on my own. So I think there is still hope for us if we remember the little nuances that come from our human perspective. There is still hope for us if we try to carve out time to play and experiment despite a world that wants us to do otherwise.
Yes, Hope. We like that. We like that.
So to answer that question, I really think it's about understanding what people value. And so in my line of work, that's very important to me because, for example, if someone, for example, is vocal about like a filmmaker who needs music and they want to leverage AI music, well, maybe I'm not the person that you need because that's not how I'm going to generate my work. And so I think when it can actually kind of be a luxury to think this way because, again, it goes back to doing things that you need to serve your needs and meet your needs immediately versus having the space and the bandwidth to like hold off on meeting your needs to like stand on principle. And so I just think it's a question that you have to ask yourself when you're engaging with people that you work with, people that pay you for services, goods, whatever that may be. What are your values and what are their values? And if their values don't align with how you want to do your work or just how you move about, it may not be worth engaging with that person because the disagreement starts at that point. And I think, generationally speaking, I always think about, I forget what book I read, but there was a book where it talked about the Industrial Revolution and how when they started shipping ice across the world, like people used to make their own ice. And so at a certain point, like being able to get ice on demand was a new technology. And so new technology will always be a thing. There will always be like a fear that something's going to go away or something's going to be replaced. And that is the case at every point in life. And so we also have to think about the fact that that's just the nature of change. That's the nature of evolution. And I have found peace in reframing my mind around that concept and understanding like, what are my values in the midst of these changes and where do I stand and how do I identify other people's values in terms of just how the workspace changes, just how everything changes, because it's really a case by case basis, really, yeah. And I will say, I'm sorry, there will be space for all things to exist, and I think that the pendulum will swing in the sense that like there will be people who just are like, no, I want to find a human being. And there are already people who are like that. And so it's about finding your tribe because there are going to be multiple tribes. There's so many people in the world. So you have to find like who's in alignment with that and go from there.
So many thoughts. The communication aspect that you mentioned of like speaking to the sort of people that will resonate with your values makes it so much more important now for us to be clear about who we're talking to. I had the privilege to advise and mentor and coach many artists, and one of the things that I keep kind of jokingly but kind of tough lovingly telling them is like, don't say that you draw. Like that's not your differentiator. A lot of people can draw. AI can draw now. That's not what makes you special. I'm sorry. I know you love drawing. I know you find fulfillment in it, but that's not what's gonna make you stand out. You probably have to be like Kim Jong-gi or like somebody like Da Vinci sort of thing to like be known just for that. But we live in an era, especially now with AI, in which it's way more important that we connect with the human before we connect with the craft. Or maybe the craft is a medium to connect with the human or the other way around, but we need to know the human behind it. And this might be hard for people who are more introverted, who don't want to show up and be known. There's way around it. It doesn't mean that you have to like dance and tell jokes or anything like that. But people have to figure out that there's a human, a real human, with feelings, with a story, with struggles that they can feel attached to. I feel like this is so relevant in the music industry with bands because we don't just relate to the music, we relate to the ethos that is behind those bands, like the music videos, like, oh yeah, that's kind of like how I was feeling when I was breaking up with my ex, or like, yeah, what that guy is doing is like how I would like to be when I am 24 or something like that. Like growing up is like we saw this as aspirational or just as a reflection of ourselves. So it's so important that with our art, that we don't focus the value on the craft, although the craft is important, that we focus the value on the story behind it. And just to give you a silly example, I read this story a while ago about this guy who went around his neighborhood and just gathered a bunch of junk from the streets and then went to eBay and put them there for sale. And like he got a rock, and then he was really good at copywriting. So he wrote like, "This is the rock what King blah 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 was blah," and he just made up stories about these found objects. They were completely fake, and he put like $2,000 for this rock or whatever, and people started buying them. And he did the good thing. It was like, hey, I want to, he refunded the money and all that because it was part of an experiment. Thank goodness. But the what he discovered was like, sometimes people care more about the story behind the object than the object itself. So if you manage to tell your story, that would be so much more valuable for people to consume, to buy, to hire, than just the thing that you actually do. So that's the difference between the result and the story. Just publish your story. That's one thought. The other one that might be a little bit more controversial, but I think we should get over ourselves in a way. So I'm all for making art accessible, because I wouldn't be here if art hadn't been accessible in my life. My dad was a classical guitarist, and I lived in a family that had multiple people involved in different arts, and I knew how hard it was for them to just thrive in their business. But because of them, I had access to art. I had access to opportunities where I could learn these things. So I'm very grateful for that. And what AI is doing in a way is just democratizing access for people to produce things that they couldn't otherwise. The same way that, we couldn't, the people who were rich had paintings of themselves and nobody else had anything to remind them of their history. Then came the camera, and now people could take photos, and now everybody takes photos on their phones. So now like everybody can do it. It's great. We can keep memories there, but there's also the value of that AI, becomes cheap. So I think the struggle for the artist would be of like, we understand the value of making things accessible for everybody else, but maybe we need to start to be open to the idea that the art that we produce for a living should be elite, and we should charge accordingly for that. Because if we think that our art is accessible and therefore it has to be cheap, we're gonna get stuck in a circle in which we'll be unfulfilled, and we're also not going to honor the value of what we're going to do. I suspect, and I project, and I'm not data analyst or anything, but I suspect that in not a far long future, the people who are craftsmen, craft women who know how to do these things from the ground up without some aid of AI are going to be so few that they're going to be very, 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 very valuable. And because of that, we should embrace it. I feel like it's okay to charge insane prices for what we do, because the right people are going to really appreciate it. Now, the last example, sorry, I'm taking a long time, but everybody has one of this, right? And for those who are listening, I'm holding my phone here. Have you ever considered the incredible piece of technology that this is? Like, the first people who went to the moon had less technology than what we had in our phones. Yet we open it every morning and we don't even think about how amazing it is. We expect it to work in a certain way. And that is what happens with every technology. We expect it to behave that way so it doesn't surprise us. But a person who is in front of you dancing, who is in front of you painting, playing music, like maybe not even arts, just like doing sports, a real human will always amaze us, because we know at our core that in order for us to do that, it will require an insane amount of sacrifice, effort, discipline. So I don't think artists are going anywhere if we embrace that what we do is valued to people. It still will amaze the people that we do what we do.
I sure hope that all of you all are right, because I don't really know what else I could do if not. So I would love if anyone in the audience, particularly someone who voted for any of the options who didn't get selected, like if you have thinky thoughts, like you can feel free to head to the mic and say things. And while that's happening, if that's happening, I would love for everyone here, because I'm sure everyone now knows, like, oh yeah, that's why you wanted to gather these people to say things. How can people like find you, and people listening, like how can the people find you? Not in like your house, you know what I mean.
How to find me online. Um, so I work at Data and Society, so you could find my work there. This project I'm doing now will be published next year. But before that, I also have my own platform called Black in Real Life, BLKIRL. And that started with a podcast where I essentially traced my whole PhD journey, and the future of the podcast will look different from that. But you kind of got to see like behind the scenes, and each season like reflected a different year in my life. But now I'm also working on a blog, which I have couple blog posts each month, and all the blog posts are about creative work, creative life through a Black perspective. It's called the B side, B for Black. So definitely read that. I write about things like the labor market. I kind of break things down for you, like why does it seem like trash right now? You know, I have an article that explains that. I talk a little more about W.E.B. Du Bois and double consciousness. So each article I write there is a way to make some of these conversations around labor and its intersection with race, sometimes technology, but mostly creative work, more accessible to the people, because I believe in public scholarship, and I believe in talking about things in a way that doesn't focus on jargon and hard to understand terms, just like break it down, because I come from a marketing background before this life. So what is the main thing you need to know? I kind of write in that more accessible way. So follow me on Black in Real Life on all the platforms, particularly Instagram, and the website www.blkirl.com. And if you want to know me personally and see me outside of that platform, it's at Anuli Was Here, ANULI Was Here, and that's also the name of my website, anuliwashere.com, and you can learn more about me as a human in addition to my work. Thank you.
Cool. I want to make a small parenthesis because I just realized that maybe what I just said made sound like, oh, so then you have to just like be amazingly good to be able to thrive as an artist, and the rest of us who are kind of like in the middle or maybe just starting have no hope. And I don't want that to be what taints the idea. I'm gonna go back to just what I said at the beginning, that people resonate with the story. So yes, ideally you want to get good at what you do, like uniquely good, but your story is the thing that you need to get really good at telling, um, along with your craft. So I just want to make that so that it doesn't sound like, oh yeah, Alejo's pretty good at drawing, so he doesn't worry about it, but maybe so that's the thing. Okay, now myself, Alejo is short for Alejandro, so Alejo, and my last name is Porras, Porras. So if you search for Alejo Porras, I'm probably gonna be the first option there, because I've been very intentional about showing up online. But in case you don't, Alejo Porras Art will take you there on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn, I think, and my website. So yeah, and coming up at some point this year, I'm also going to be releasing a podcast called Fresh Ideas, which is also the name of my newsletter. And I talk about the intersection of creativity and business. So if that's your jam, find me out. That's on Substack. There you go, because I'm new on that platform. So Alejo Porras Art on Substack. Thanks.
And I want to comment on something you just said, Alejo. So the other part of that is good is relative, and you want to get good at your craft, but you also should lean into your quirks. I just learned that Michael Jordan's thumb was abnormally long, so he could grip the ball a way that nobody else could, which made him unique in the star that he became. So I think that people just don't spend enough time with themselves to find those quirks that like make them the best at whatever they attempt. And I think, you know, whatever you're freeing up your mind to do should be leaning into like, let me learn myself outside of the rhythm of what I'm doing day to day in my work life so that I can spend time to lean into that thing that may be your ticket to leaving whatever job you're at that you may not like because you found that thing that nobody else literally can do because you have a biological advantage. So those are the things that I think will also shift the dynamics with the integration of AI. It's like people are going to lean more into their quirks. But yeah, that made me think of that. Yeah. In terms of where you can find me, if the easiest way literally is to type in Emily Sankofa on Google and everything about me will pop up. Like my website will be first. It'll be e-sankofa.com. But on Instagram, if that's your thing, you can find me at Emily, Emmolei. And if you find my website, I'll just let you find my work because I don't want to give away what I've done. But you can find my work on Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, many places. But you will see those things if you just type me in. There we go. Can everybody see this clearly? Emily, Emmolei, and then Sankofa, Emily Sankofa.
So I love how this conversation ended up being about humanity and our human creativity as much as like robot stuff. Cause like I don't know, it feels hard to like cut through this tool's out now and oh you need to build a website, type in the doop de doop and then it'll just do it for you. So yeah, we're humans still and should probably nurture that more. Is that I don't know, there is no moral. The moral is I am so happy that you all came out tonight to jam with us. Thank you so much to our amazing panel. Like you should follow all of them because they do incredible stuff. Thank you so much to our visual videography team. Now that's one thing. I don't know how any of that works and it's scary and like I will delegate all day because how do cameras work? I don't know. Thank you so much, Sam, running the sound. Appreciate you. And thank you so much for all of you. Like when you do things, it's like, are people gonna show up? I don't know. So yeah, that's appreciated very much. But yeah, we can like chit chat for a little bit, or you could like go get ready for your worky jobs tomorrow. I'm so happy that you all were here, and stay tuned. In theory, this should be out like in a week or so or two. Don't hold me to that. It's gonna be out at some point soon. Thank you so much for joining us for a live edition of Could Be Pretty Cool News, Metrics and Mingling 2025.